Hey everyone, you've joined Short Takes again. We're produced by the Alabama Take. I am your host, Blaine Duncan. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Alabama Take. Our show is a brief talk show with some of our favorite people, artists, and creators. The idea is that I ask 4 questions, and the 4th question is always the same for each guest. Today, I am very excited, very happy to be joined by author Tessa Fontaine. Hey, Tessa.
Hey, Blaine. How you doing?
I'm great. Tell our viewers what you've been up to of late.
Yeah, sure. So I have been teaching creative writing at Warren Wilson College, which is a little liberal arts school here in Asheville, North Carolina. And it's a little farm school, actually. So when you drive in, there's just like pigs and sheep and cows, and it's real wild there, and that's been pretty fun. And writing lots of short pieces, working on my second book, and just getting to know the mountains here in North Carolina. Yeah.
It's been too long since I've seen you, but it sounds like you're doing great.
Yeah, doing good. Yeah. Though I miss Alabama all the time.
Yeah, well, we're not too far. Come see us.
Okay.
Well, you are the author of such a magnificent piece of work. It's The Electric Woman, a memoir in Death-Defying Acts. It's before we begin anything with our 4 questions, I just want to encourage viewers to read that book. It's a very moving and deliberate and emotional piece of work. I loved it. And it's now in paperback, right?
It is. It's in paperback, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was it like to get such a well-deserved, loving reaction for that work? I feel like it got a good response.
Yeah, and thank you for those kind words about it. I really appreciate it. I think like any person who's creating something, like you spend all this time just like by yourself in this world, writing and trying to tell whatever story it is you're trying to tell, having no idea how it will connect to outside people or if it will ever connect to outside people, if it will even see the light of day, or if it will move anyone. And so it has been like so deeply meaningful to learn that, not just that it's kind of well received by like some reviewers or something, but to get actual personal notes from people who are, writing me, strangers who write me and say why it was meaningful to them and what in their life, feels relatable or is impacted in a similar way. And so I think that feels like, I don't know, it's like, not to sound so cheesy, but it's kind of like that moment of feeling like the world is a lot smaller than it feels sometimes, like feeling like there are ways that we can, bridge human connection. And that feels really, really meaningful and wonderful. So yeah, I think it was as much of a gift as I could have asked for my first foray into the book length publishing. And I'm quickly learning, I'm working on a second book right now, and quickly learning that just because you can do it the once doesn't mean you can necessarily do it again. It's a different kind of, it's just a different kind of experience each time. Like writing this book has been really different than the first one. And so that's been a humbling lesson, I think.
I imagine it's a little scary too, right?
Totally scary. I mean, it's like a classic trope with writers, and I think musicians too, that like, if your first book does all right, then like there's just all this pressure on the second one, and it just gets in your head. And I've talked to a lot of other writers who felt like with their first book, and I kind of felt like this, like, oh, I said all the things I needed to say. Like I said the most important things to me. So now that that's out of the way, like what else is it that I want to say or want to explore or want to learn about or whatever it is? And so it took a lot of settling into for me. And I knew really early on that I had a couple characters. I knew a setting. I like had some basic stuff down, but it took me years to figure out what the story was. And I actually have written through probably like 5 different full novels with these same characters, same setting, just with different situations to kind of finally get to this iteration that it's in right now, which is, I think, its final iteration. But yeah, it was tough. It was tough. I really wanted to give up a lot of times, but
so with your new,
Mm-hmm.
with your new work, you're in the editing stage. Am I right?
I'm in the editing stage, yeah. So the draft is, I mean, I sold the draft to the publisher, same publisher for my first book, working with the same editor, and so yeah, I'm editing it. Although we're doing some pretty extensive edits. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like the publishing industry is kind of like this. Like you sell your book, and they're like, "Oh, it's great, it's so close." Then you sign the paperwork, and they're like, "Just kidding. Actually, you have so much work to do." Now that you
Wow,
signed that
yeah.
line, yeah, no, tear this apart. But that's good. It's all in service of a better book, better story.
Sure. Can you comment on it any, maybe vaguely, release date or anything?
It will probably come out early 2023, which is just feels like an eternity from now. But I'll probably be working on edits for another 8 or 9 months, and then once I finish that, it's like a full year of production. So probably early 2023. Don't have a title yet, but it's set in the late 90s in Northern California in sort of a utopian kind of community. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll see if I can get it done, Blaine. The jury's still out.
Well, I do know that the editing process can change what you have in mind right now. So I won't hold you to much of that.
Okay.
But maybe we could have you back in early 2023 and talk more in depth about this. You alluded to it being fiction, so this was
Yeah,
fiction.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a novel. Yep,
different
exactly.
beast, right?
Oh, totally different beast. Yeah, yeah. And I'll probably be a fool enough to try a completely different genre for my third book, just to keep making life good and hard.
That's admirable, and I'm sure it's going to be great.
Oh, thanks.
So I know you've also done some reviews for the New York Times since writing your book, as well as essays that people can find linked at your site. And I'll put those in the show notes, the links and things. Uh, how do you, how does that work with the New York Times review? Do they reach out to you, or is that something that you volunteer to do?
Yeah, they reached out to me, which was really quite a surprise. I just got got an email from the editor of the New York Times Book Review, just saying like, "Hey, are you interested in writing a review for this particular book that is coming out in a couple of months?" And so I said, of course, yes. And they sent it to me, and I feel really lucky. The book was "Long Live the Tribe of Fatherless Girls" by T. Kira Madden, and I feel really lucky that I loved it. I think it's
Yeah.
just a tremendous memoir because I think you can get into kind of an uncomfortable position when like being the writer for the New York Times gives you just a lot of authority suddenly, like more than I was really comfortable with. And
Hmm.
it just would have been so devastating to feel like I was like taking an author down, by like writing something that wasn't loving. Although, I would have been truthful about it. But yeah, I loved the book and so felt really glad to be able to give it a really, really positive review in there. And then, yeah, I mean, I am hoping to review for them more again in the future. You can also pitch to their book reviewer. And it's fun to feel like, to do that deep dive on a new book and kind of like try to parse out, not just what it is in and of itself, but kind of where it is in the larger conversation of contemporary literature. And there's just always so many excellent books coming out. So yeah, it feels really fun to get to be on that side of things too. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. Not to jump backward a little too much, but the Electric Woman, I was so impressed by it seemed as though there was this, it wasn't quite 1-to-1 ratio, but there was this metaphor of being in the sideshow linked to the struggles you were going through with your mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was just so impressive to see a linkage that I wouldn't have seen alone without the help of your writing. And I just can't encourage people enough to buy that book, read it, get it from the library, however. But it's wonderful work.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
Well, let's get going. You want to dive into our questions?
Yes, I do.
All right. We'll start with this. Our question one is, what is it you envy in others?
Yes. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is a person who can like sit in a room with a bunch of people and start telling a story that is so captivating and interesting and full of detail, and it just gets, everybody wants to know what happens next. And even when that story is done, then there's another story that comes from there. So what I envy are people who are amazing oral storytellers, who can just like spin a yarn and, and kind of like in the sideshow, I think sometimes however much truth or non-truth is in there is kind of irrelevant. It's like all about the tale that's being spun. And I just really admire, I guess, / feel very envious of people who can kind of use a lot of the storytelling devices that I think I kind of know how to do on the page, but cannot do, verbally in life. So in my next life, I would like to be reincarnated just as like a very old man who is sitting on some porch somewhere, just like telling stories to whoever happens to come by. And that's my wish for round 2 or round whatever it would
be. Editing on the fly really is the trick to oral storytelling. Do you know anyone like that?
I know a couple people who, yes, I know a couple people who are, even if I wouldn't have characterized them exactly as incredible oral storytellers, they know how to kind of make a conversation continually move forward with like small anecdotes, just small stories that kind of move them forward. And I find that I have a lot of close friends who are kind of like that, maybe not in as quite, again, grandiose a way, but I really like kind of collect for myself people around me who are really good at, spinning tales and know how to just like use whatever they're talking about to make people laugh and make people cry. And yeah, I just love it. Yeah. Do you?
Yes, I do. One of my best friends from high school, we had been friends since age 10 and even roomed together some in college, was like that. And you're right, he would tell a story and I would have been a part of the story, and there would be a moment where I would think, well, that didn't quite happen that way, but that's better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love those people too, and they're so entertaining. All right, let's get into question 2. If you could go back to your teenage self and you had a minute with teenage Tessa before you disappeared, what would you tell young Tessa, and what does she need to know?
Oh, Blaine, she needs to know so many things. I mean, I think the biggest like really deep lesson would be that I wish that I could make her believe, make her understand that, number one, she's going to be fine. Things are going to be fine. And I think in this bigger sense, like that, I wish I could like put a law in for young Tessa that like, you can't try to take yourself seriously until you are 27, 28, 30 or something, because I think I spent so much time in my early 20s. I mean, I messed around plenty, but I was also like so stressed out about like trying to find my true calling and find a job that was impressive and do things that were meaningful and also made enough money and just all this stuff that like, certainly those are important, valid things to chase after. But I was really just figuring out who I was and what I wanted to do and what was interesting and what, how life worked. And so, I was really lucky in that I would, work and travel and do a little bit of that. But I think I would say to young Tessa, like, forget being serious, get a bunch of who cares jobs and, till you're 27 and have fun and travel and make as much money as you need, but don't worry about anything more than that. And just mess around, just like try to take yourself a little bit less seriously. 'Cause that has been, I've always taken myself a little bit too seriously, I think. And I think as I've gotten older, that's shaken away a little bit. On a even more important level, I'd probably say never get bangs. it's never going to work out for you. Keep away from the bangs. Also, those white jeans just also are always going to look too dirty. Just steer clear.
Oh, that's funny. Well, why 27? Is that a magic number?
No, I think just something for me in my late 20s, I just kind of got a little bit more into my groove, which is actually the time, I think I was 26 when I came to the MFA program at Alabama. And I was doing plenty of messing around when I was there, but I was also, kind of seriously studying writing. And so I don't know, I think just something about kind of late 20s feels like the time of growing old. And also, it's funny that you just asked that. I hadn't thought about this before, but when I was little, whenever I would make my Barbies that I was playing with be like really old adults, they would be like 27. So maybe that's always been in my head as like adult, the real adult age.
That reminds me of when I was a kid. Did you do this too when you were a kid and you were in school, or even a teenager and you were in school? You thought your teacher was really old, and now that you're X years old, you see that now they are actually old and they weren't then?
Yes. In fact, I have a couple of teachers from high school who I just did not at all realize were in their 20s. And, now I'm like, oh, I'm close to your age, teachers, because I was also close to your age then. But at the time, like, yeah, they just seemed like just monstrously old. But right, of course, yes. We keep catching up with them.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So having gone through the sideshow as well as those hardships with your mother, all documented in your book, I'm not telling tales out of school here. What's something you now realize about being human?
Yeah. Gosh, I think the thing that both of those experiences made really clear for me is that there is no getting around pain. That I think for me, like, part of being human means enduring pain, and that might be physical pain. Like in the sideshow, we did a bunch of acts that were really physically uncomfortable, physically painful. And the way that you ultimately did a lot of those acts was not really by having special skills. Really, anyone could pretty much do them, but it's just like withstanding the pain and the discomfort of it. And I think that was what also kind of started to become clear for me about this experience of being with my mom, who had gone through these strokes and was just completely debilitated for so many years. It was really hard to care for her and really hard to just learn what my relationship would be with her now that she couldn't speak or move or anything. And I think the same thing was true there. And that's just like sitting in, like, I just had to be in a lot of pain, and there was no getting around it. There was no curing it. There was no like, well, now, it's going to suddenly be better or something. It was just like learning to be inside that deep discomfort. And that was not something that I had understood before, I think. And that really, I think this idea of like bravery that we have is not like being heroic and doing something that lets you skirt the pain. It's like enduring the pain and still going on with your life, which so many people have to do for all kinds of reasons all the time. So, a lesson of humanness, I think, is just being inside that pain.
It's a very Buddhist way of approaching or thinking about life. Are you interested in Buddhism or?
Yeah, that's interesting. Somewhat, yeah. I mean, I very occasionally meditate, which is, I was going to say I meditate, but no, I very occasionally meditate. And I have done some Buddhist reading. And I guess what maybe feels a little bit different to me is like, I think like Buddhism says that like all life is suffering, or, that there's, something like that. And I mean, going along with all of this, sitting in the pain, like the reason that it all is worth it is because there's also this just like incredible joy that we get in life. So many beautiful, beautiful things that we can experience. And I think that was what also kind of started to become clear for me about this experience of being with my mom, who had gone through these strokes and was just completely debilitated for so many years. It was really hard to care for her now that she couldn't speak or move or anything. And hilarious, joyful kind of moments. And so that is all equally true. I think that not the detachment, but the ability to kind of look at feel the feelings of pain and understand that that's a feeling of pain, and that it isn't you, like you aren't the pain, but like it's something that you are experiencing. That is kind of a Buddhist idea, and that is helpful to me sometimes, to think like, not I am pain, but like I am experiencing this pain, and yeah, I think that can help a little bit.
Yeah, that's insightful. I think you know about our next question. We had a bit of a saying, done up real good. So what's been done up real good for you of late?
Whew, so many things here. There is a TV show that I loved, a couple TV shows I've loved recently. One is an HBO show called I May Destroy You, which is about, did you watch that?
Yes. We talked about it quite a bit on our other show. It's a podcast. It's not really a show, but yeah.
Oh, I got to listen to that. I want to hear what y'all say about it.
That's a challenging show.
It's a challenging show, totally. Yeah, and uncomfortable, and
yes.
I felt myself like being judgy. Like, I think it just called into question a lot of really things that I found really productive. So I really loved that. I also love the show Fleabag, which is, Phoebe Waller-Bridges, based on her one-woman show, and just has this direct address to the camera that is so funny, and this kind of backstory that's revealed really slowly. A movie that I think we always play the Oscars game and decide which of the nominated movies would win, and I actually liked a lot of them from 2020, even though they were home viewing movies. But I really loved Promising Young Woman, which is a story kind of about it's sort of a revenge tale of this woman who pretends to get really, really drunk and gets taken home by men in bars, and then like in the trailer you kind of see this moment where she's like kind of passed out and being taken home, and then you just see her like, you're like, uh-oh, things are about to go down. And so it's a really interesting kind of twist on like a revenge story or something. So those, I feel like pandemic for me has been, I've always like watched some TV and movies, but not a ton, but I think a pandemic has done me real good for settling into some TV and movies.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to watch Nomadland?
Yeah, I really liked Nomadland too.
I did too.
Yeah, I thought that was great. And so interesting that it's this like really unique mix of kind of fiction, feature film, and then this like documentary, real people that they brought into it. I thought that was really cool.
I feel like there's a few comparisons to be made between Nomadland and your memoir, because of a person putting themselves in a new, I don't want to say environment, that would be the word, a new environment, and then also dealing with things that are familial and outside of that environment. So and like the community that grows up around those kinds of really unique communities where people are living outside of kind of the bounds of like quote unquote normal society, and figuring out what their relationships are to each other and to like how they're getting by. Yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely some overlap of carny world and van life, I guess. Yeah. Certainly the traveling. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
If
totally.
nothing else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned it. Your book is one of my favorites of the past few years, and I'm excited about what's coming next with the piece of fiction that's coming. I appreciate you taking some time out of your edits to talk to me and our viewers, and maybe I mentioned it, but maybe we can really have you on for your book release when the new one's out.
I would love that. That would be fantastic. I always enjoy talking to you, and I would just love that, Blake. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. For our viewers, you can click on the YouTube notes. If you're in YouTube, click on the show notes below. Find the link to buy Tessa's book, including a signed copy. Is that still a thing?
Yes, it is. Yeah, totally.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You will want a copy of that. And I'll also put some links to her website and other pieces as well. To everyone, we'll talk to you again next week. And to Tessa, hope to talk to you soon. Take care.
Hope to talk to you soon. Thank you so much. Bye.
Will went walking and was blown away. Found his finger by my mama's grave.